I want to welcome you to Canyon Creek Church today. You are here on one of the most special days of the year. You see, it's once a year we get to celebrate dads. And as a dad, I want to say, there's Mother's Day, but I want to declare that starting this year, there's always Father's Year. So that starts officially today. Father's Day hits home especially for me this year because my baby girl, my firstborn child, the apple of my eye, little baby Rachel, graduated from high school this week. I can't believe I have a high school graduate. I always joke that I'm way too young to have a teenager that's done with high school. And as we talk about Father's Day today, I want to veer away from our Genesis series, and I just want to talk about being a dad. And I've reflected a lot in the couple weeks leading up to Rachel's graduation and then thinking about her future. And then I look at my twin boys who are starting in 8th grade next year and how quickly they're going to be leaving the home. And I've had all these opportunities to constantly reflect on being a dad. And this morning, I just want to talk about dads, being a dad. I want to lighten the mood initially by sharing what an expert talked about the different stages of dads dealing with their kids. There's really 4 different stages. In stage 1, they call you Dada. One of my greatest claims to fame and one of the things I'm most proud of in our family is that for every one of our kids, they said Dada before they said Mama. So it's stage 1, they say Dada. Stage 2, they grow and they call him Daddy. And I think about Rachel for years and years. In fact, I would say until she was a sophomore in high school, she would call me Daddy. And before she went to sleep at night, she'd run into whatever room I was in and give me a hug and kiss me on the cheek and say, "Good night, Daddy." And I had visions of her just staying this way, that someday she'd be 40, married, kids, call me on the phone before she went to sleep at night and say, "I just wanted to say good night, Daddy. I love you." But how many of you know that changes to stage 3? And that's where your kids call you Dad. And now I'm transitioning to stage 4, where your kids start calling you Collect. I think we've all been there. I heard this recently. I thought this is pretty good. But these are some interesting things that dads say to their kids. So dads, I want you to ask yourself, do you say these types of things to your kids? It's funny because it's almost like every single dad, we always say, when I have kids, I am not going to say those things that my dad used to say to me. And then we find these things just a regular part of our vocabulary. But here it is. Son, this hurts me more than it hurts you. Kids, someday, when you're older, you'll understand. Son, don't ever get married and tell that to your kids. When your daughter is about ready to leave the house and she's wearing something a little bit questionable, and you look at her and you just ask this question, "Where the heck are your clothes?" Or maybe some of you dads have found yourself saying this, "No, son, I'm sorry, that man with the big tummy, he's not pregnant." Or maybe you found yourself as a dad saying this one, "Son, 2 wrongs don't make a right. When I say no, I mean no. Why? Because I said, that's why." I'm sure you've heard yourself say that one. Well, what about this one? Frankly, kids, I don't know. Don't ask me. Go ask your mother. You ever seen yourself say, or heard yourself say this one? Wipe that smile off your face or I will. Or how about this one? If you don't stop crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about. Maybe some of you dads have found yourself saying, if you break your legs, don't come running to me. Or lastly, yeah, kids, the mommy doggy is playing piggyback with the daddy doggy. Things that I think every dad at some point has had to say to their kids. I read a blog recently, and this blog was amazing because it was a daughter who was reflecting back on her dad. And she wrote this blog in his honor on his 60th birthday. And she talked about the fact that her dad was her hero. And she shared the lessons that she learned from her dad growing up. And today, I want to highlight those lessons. That's what I want to talk about today. I want to share with you the 5 lessons that this girl learned from her dad that she shared with him on his 60th birthday. And dads, I just want to ask you today, what are your kids going to say about you on your 60th birthday? Whenever I do child dedications, this is one of the verses that I read, and this verse is one of my life verses as far as it pertains to parenting. And I want to read this verse, and then I'm going to pray, and then let's talk about what are the 5 things she honored her dad about at his 60th birthday, and let's see if maybe they speak to each and every one of us here today. But it's Proverbs chapter 20, verse 7. This is the only verse that I'm going to highlight today. It says, "The righteous man leads a blameless life. Blessed are his children after him." This is a reminder to me that if I won't serve Jesus for me, that it's a reminder that if I won't serve Jesus to bless my marriage, that maybe I will do the right thing and I will live a right, godly life and I will serve Jesus. Because in God's word, it promises a blessing to my children. So if you could do anything and it guaranteed that that baby you hold in your arms, that if you did something, this child would be blessed. If you knew, dads, that there was something that you could do, that that little girl who holds your pinky when you walk into the church building on Sunday mornings, that would guarantee her life would be blessed. I think we would all agree as fathers, if we knew there was something that we could do that would guarantee a blessing for our children, we would do it. And that is the promise in God's word, that a righteous man leads a blameless life, that blessed are his children after him. Today I want to talk about the lessons my dad taught me from an adult child to her 60-year-old father. I want everybody to bow your heads, close your eyes. I want you to repeat this prayer after me. Everyone say, "Dear Jesus, speak to my heart, change my life. In Jesus' name, amen." The 5 lessons that I learned from my dad. She said the first thing that I learned is that endurance can help you overcome all things. I mean, what an amazing lesson to teach your kids. Teach them perseverance. Teach them stick-to-itiveness. Teach your kids not to quit. And she said this specifically. She said, always persevere and endure, even when all the odds are stacked against you and you just don't think you can go on. You can. She said, my dad had an undiagnosed brain tumor that made him miserable for 10 years and most of my childhood. Even though he didn't want to face another day, he would rise early in the mornings and make his kids breakfast and go to work and take on projects to help out at the church. And now today, he's tumor-free and he appreciates his health every single day. If he could work as hard as he did through such sickness, what keeps my healthy self from giving my all each day? Dads, I want to challenge you. Teach your kids to not give up. Teach your kids the power of perseverance. Teach them to not quit. There are going to be so many times your kids are going to sign up for sports and they start doing baseball practice and it snows outside. And they're going to want to quit. This past soccer season, my niece Ashton, and she is just an absolutely adorable little fireball. And it was in the middle of a soccer game, and it was a typical Seattle terrible weather. And Ashton was miserable. It was cold, it was raining, and she's running around the soccer field begging her parents to let her not play anymore, and she's crying. And she finally convinced her coach to let her go to the bathroom. And so she ran over to, one of those little big blue porta potties and locked herself in. And my brother-in-law said it was like a half hour had gone by and Ashton hadn't come out of the bathroom. So he walked over to the porta potty that she was in, and he heard her screaming and pounding the walls in the porta potty, saying, "I hate soccer. I want to quit. I hate soccer." 3 days ago, at my daughter's graduation, Ashton was sitting in front of me, and I was asking her about sports, and I said, "Ashton, what's your favorite sport?" And she said, "I love soccer." You know why? Mom and Dad didn't let her quit. They eventually pried her out of that porta potty and made her keep playing. One of my sons this week, Judah, got promoted to a blue belt in Taekwondo. Super proud of Judah. He's doing awesome at Taekwondo. But did you know, halfway through, when he was a white belt, he begged me to let him quit Taekwondo. I mean, he didn't want to go anymore. Was sick of having to go to practices, was sick of the drills, was sick of having to spar. He hadn't even been doing it for a month, and he wanted to quit. And I always think, I could have just let him quit. It would have been so much easier just to give in and let Judah quit. But in our household, you don't quit. You persevere. You stick to it. And you can ask my wife about this. Judah and I had the "are you gonna man up" conversation. And I sat him down and I gave him the speech. I call it the Mickey to Rocky speech. All the times Rocky wanted to give up, Mickey would say to Rocky, come on, Rock. Don't give up. Get up. Keep fighting. Don't give in. And I gave Judah my Mickey speech. And I looked at him and I said, "Judah, if you quit now, you're going to have reasons to quit always. There's always something you're going to do that you don't like." And I said, if it was easy, everybody'd do it. If anybody could just start doing martial arts and end up having a black belt, everybody'd have black belts. There's a reason that a select few people have black belts, and that's because they didn't quit. They didn't give up. They persevered. And he started saying things, "Well, I just want to do sport, just normal sports and things." I said, "You can do that. You can go get a Letterman's jacket. Like just about every other person has ever had a Letterman's jacket." Everybody's been able to find some sport that they can letter in high school. In fact, nowadays, Judah, did you know you can letter in chess in high school? Anybody can get a Letterman's jacket. I said, but you know how rare it is for someone to have a black belt? I mean, you will be one of the few people in your entire high school that can be walking around knowing, I worked super hard and I got a black belt. And now here we are a year later, and my son is not a white belt. He tested on Thursday and is a blue belt. And he's about a year away from being a black belt. Dads, teach your kids not to quit. Endurance can help you overcome all things. Second thing she said she learned from her dad is that good workmanship is worth the trouble. So doing things the right way the first time is worth it. I mean, what an amazing lesson. One of the things that I've always appreciated about my dad growing up is that my dad works hard. He has always worked super hard. And my dad's one of those guys that knows a lot about a lot. I am not one of them. I didn't inherit that from my dad, but he works hard and he does a good job at every single thing he does. And it was such a great example to me. But good workmanship is worth the trouble. She said this about her dad. She said, my dad taught me that just showing up isn't enough. That if you're going to begin a project, make sure you set out to do it right. She said, Dad is infamous for beginning what should be a small project and turning it into a huge to-do. I mean, how many of you ladies are married to a guy like this? This is because he knows the value of not cutting corners, of paying attention to the details, and of valuing hard work. Sure, lots of dads are handymen, but nobody is as meticulously handy as my dad. He makes me want to learn how to master new skills every day. And dads, I want to challenge you. Model hard work for your kids. Model starting a project and seeing that project all the way through and doing it to the best of your ability. What it will help your kids with is it'll help your kids to stay the course all the way through maybe a subject in school they don't like. It'll help them stick with a job they might not love as much. You know, one of the number one things that society is worried about this generation of children that are graduating is they're worried about their work ethic. They're worried that they don't work as hard as grandpa and grandma did, and they don't work as hard as, you know, mom and dad did, that things have been given to them much easier than were given to us or were given to our parents. And so they worry about that. And how do you fix that? You model good work. You model hard work. I didn't love it at the time, but looking at it now, my parents expected me to work. I always had jobs. I was in third grade, I started doing paper routes. By the time I was in sixth grade, I had 2 paper routes and had all kinds of extra money because I was constantly working. Immediately when I turned 15, I was required to get a part-time job. You could get a part-time job back then. And my first part-time job, Taco Bell. You know, wasn't glorious, but I worked at Taco Bell. I worked at the Taco Bell on 128th in Everett. It was my very first kind of real job. And I had an expectation from my parents that every summer I wouldn't spend my entire summer just playing, but I was expected to work as much as possible all summer long. And I remember one particular summer, I was just really looking forward to it. And I got woken up early the first day of summer, and my dad said, "Hey, Brandon, I need you to get up. You're going to start working with my friend Neil." Well, what am I doing with Neil, Dad? "Oh, Neil owns a rockery business. I've told him you're going to work for him all summer." So the summer of my freshman year of high school, I worked full-time building rockeries all summer long. Now, at the time, all I wanted to do was go to like Edmonds Beach and lay out and hang out with my friends and goof around. But instead, my dad instilled in me the desire to work hard and to start something and finish something. And I'm telling you, that character trait that was instilled inside of me is one of the reasons that I was able to plant this church, is because I learned to not give up and I learned to work hard. And dads, I really want to challenge you. Teach your kids to work hard. Teach them that good workmanship is worth the trouble. Third thing she said she learned from her dad is that family matters most of all. I want to just say to the dads at Canyon Creek, you will never go wrong by choosing your family first. You'll never go wrong by being a part of one less softball team to spend more time with your family. You will never go wrong choosing to play one less soccer game in a week to focus on your family. You'll never go wrong to golf less to be with your kids. Man, you will never go wrong giving up poker night with the boys so that you can coach your kids' basketball team. You will never regret putting family first. But as a dad that now has his daughter finishing high school, you don't want to look back and say, I wished I would have spent more time with my kids. This is what that girl said about her dad. She said, 10 years ago, my dad was given the opportunity to move across the country and keep his beloved job of 25 years or risk getting laid off if he decided to stay. I remember how torn he was about the decision. He loved his job and it allowed him to comfortably provide for our family. But it would mean giving up the chance to be with family. He lived within 20 minutes of his parents, most of his cousins, his aunts, his uncles, and in the end he decided to stay because a good relationship with family was more important to him. He kept his job for a while longer, but when looking for a new job, still decided to take a lower pay so he could stay around family. Friends come and go, but a good family is a blessing that lasts forever. I want to say he made the right choice. Dads, you are always going to be confronted with career over family, career over church. And I want to tell you, choose family and church over career always. Because the career and the money, it's going to come and it's going to go. But, you don't want to live with a 2-hour commute to work and back every day. And not only have to work 40 hours a week, but be in the car for another 20 hours a week. Get a job, pays less, closer to home. Spend time with your kids. Because family matters the most. When I planted Canyon Creek, and you've all heard me tell the story, that the reason I chose Mill Creek wasn't because I thought it was the best strategic place to plant. No, there were much better places that had the potential to grow a lot more rapidly and where I could maybe make a bigger impact. Now, I chose here because I wanted my kids to grow up knowing their grandparents. And I saw that yesterday. We went to graduation, and sitting in the first 2 rows were Rachel's grandparents, Rachel's aunts and uncles, and all of her cousins. As she walked through graduation, we were cheering, taking pictures, hugging on her, loving her. And I looked at that and I just thought, that right there made moving back to Seattle worth it. Because ultimately, family matters most. I'm going to be able to work for the rest of my life. But these years, family matters. 4th thing she said she learned from her dad. I hope everybody's still with me. Don't lose me. She said, he taught me the power of measuring the weight of your words. And she said this about her dad. She said, sure, my dad isn't mute, but he's certainly not a chatterbox either. Well, that is, unless we're talking about the subject of a documentary he's recently watched or about a design project he finds interesting. My dad isn't the kind of guy who's always giving out advice. He rarely criticizes, rarely gossips, rarely talks negatively about other people. This means that when he does have something to say, you better believe I'm listening. And then she quotes James 1:19 that says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. That's my dad. And here's what I learned from that statement and what it speaks to me is, Dad, never forget the power of your words. I think sometimes as dads, we need to say less to our kids, and then there are times we need to say more. The power of us as dads saying to our kids, I'm proud of you, it carries so much weight, and I'm not exactly sure why it does. But for some reason, children want to please dad. And so guard your words, protect your words. Speak words that breathe life. As men, be careful what you say to your wife. Be careful what you say to other people. Be careful what your kids hear you saying about other people. Just measure the weight of your words. And then the last thing she said she learned from her dad, and this one I really appreciate. She said, I learned from my dad to always redeem the time. And this is what she said. She said, Dad isn't a time waster. He rises early, works on a lot of extra projects, and is efficient about accomplishing everything on his to-do list. But he always has time to enjoy a cup of coffee, watch an old movie he's seen 100 times, play in a volleyball league with his son and daughter, suggest going out to ice cream at every opportunity, host card parties at our house. He's taught me that as hard as you work, you should also relax and enjoy the wonderful things in life. Western Washington, we are super busy. Now, I realize that many of you live in Snohomish County because you can afford a nice house for your family, a bigger yard for them to play in, but you have to commute to Bellevue or you have to commute to Seattle every day. So not only do you have to work the 40 hours like I talked about, but you don't have an option. You have a long commute. And what we need to realize when that happens, that the most priceless commodity we have is our time. And sometimes, Dad, the best gift you can give your kids is your time. I always make a priority when I look at my calendar, and because I do a lot of traveling, I have to look at my calendar holistically. So I'll have to look at it in a month to 2 months at a glance because there will be seasons when I'm out of town a lot. And my wife always says, Brandon, when you are out of town a lot, when you're in town, you need to be present. You need to be here. In fact, she says it this way, when you're in town, be super dad. So that means I'm trying to take Rachel out and hang out with her. I'm goofing around with the boys, taking them to movies. It means that sometime when I have to travel, I'm going to bring my kids with me. The other month, I had to go to San Francisco. As I was speaking at a church planners conference, and I knew that I was going to miss some of Rachel's senior activity. So what did I do? I brought Rachel with me. I wanted to redeem my time, and I'm going to be in Idaho next week, speaking at a church in Idaho. And I'm going to bring Judah with me when I go to Idaho because I want to redeem the time. And then at the end of July, I'm doing a wedding in California. And because I'm doing this wedding in California and I can't bring my entire family, I'm going to take Elijah with me. And I want to redeem the time with my kids. That you want to maximize every moment. And like you, I fail miserably at this, probably more often than when I succeed. But as dads, if we are constantly thinking, what do I do to redeem the time? When you are present, be present. Coach their sports teams. Lead their Boy Scout troop. Be involved in helping drive them around and take your daughter on daddy-daughter dates and go play basketball with your kids out in the street and redeem the time. When you are there, be present. Don't be stuck behind a computer. Don't be just sitting in front of a TV. Don't be just playing some video game. Invest in your kids. Redeem the time. But those are the lessons that she said she learned from her dad, and I think they're pretty good. So dads, I just want to ask you today, on this Father's Day, in a day we really want to honor you, and dads, we have incredible dads in this church. We have super dads in this church. We have dads that are heroic in this church. I just want to ask you, what do you want your kids to say about you on your 60th birthday? I want to ask everyone who would do me a favor. I want to have all the dads stand up right now. And I'm going to invite up the campus pastor who wants to pray a special blessing over all the dads.